the dark side of YouTube, a place that I probably frequent far too often for my own good, but I've fallen in love with the search for finding the most twisted channels on the site, as evident from my series
and nice shirt xQcf.
Called YouTube's Darkest Channels. But in these haunting corners, I often find myself stumbling upon one-off videos whose origins are both deeply disturbing and entirely mysterious.
What was the other ones?
And today we'll be deep diving into 3 in particular that have proven to be just a few of YouTube's darkest videos.
Guys, we watched some of the videos that are presented because he shows them as this is what we already watched.
Space exploration. At its most successful, we have produced some of mankind's greatest accomplishments.
That's one small step for man.
But with these inspiring victories came tragic failures.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
There's little room for error when attempting to visit space, and oftentimes the failures are catastrophic, to the point where they can't be hidden from the public eye. But oddly enough, perhaps one of the greatest disasters in the great pursuit of space is likely one that many of you haven't heard of, and that's because in large part, it may have been covered up. It happened back in February 1996 at the Xichang Satellite Launch Center in China. There, an American company named Space Systems, in collaboration with Chinese scientists, had built a telecommunications satellite that was set to take off on the 15th of the month, with China having built and produced the rocket itself. The satellite would be known as Intelsat 708, and was set to orbit Earth for 15 long years, an estimated lifespan that would turn out to be far too generous, as in actuality, its trip would only last a mere 15 seconds. On the 15th of February 1996, the Seattle Times would publish an article titled "China Rocket Crashes to Earth, Fatalities Reported in Space Program Setback." The story went on to read, the newly developed Long March 3B rocket carrying the Intelsat Inc. satellite veered towards the ground and exploded moments after liftoff at 3:01 a.m. Hong Kong radio said 4 people were killed and dozens were injured in the explosion, but Shang Lui, a spokeswoman for the government aerospace agency, said that there were no deaths. It's a devastating scene to imagine, however, as the rocket was said to weigh roughly 900,000 pounds and would have produced a violent explosion. But the early conflicting reports in the death toll were initially a promising sign, as the one official source had claimed that there were no fatalities. However, this number would later be changed after investigation, as Chinese officials reported that, in the end, 6 people had died as the result of the satellite's crash, along with a whopping 57 others having suffered minor injuries. In the grand scheme of things, it was a tragic event, but with the information presented by the government, it seemed safe to say that things could have gone a lot worse, and that's because they likely did. When on site, the group of Americans would wind up filming the entire event in a recording that is now
how do you get a minor injury from a blast like that? Oh, yeah, I guess a little bit of fire or whatnot?
Found a home on YouTube. And thanks to this video, we have a visual of just how horrific the incident truly was.
Oh my god! Oh, there's a fuck ton of fuel left in there, right? Oh my god.
It's a devastating explosion, and one that created such a powerful shockwave that all the glass in the surrounding area had shattered, something that can actually be heard moments after the crash.
I mean...
And this isn't the only angle shown in the video either, as someone in a nearby town had been recording as well. This angle shows the rocket striking incredibly close to where the person was filming.
food's here.
But what it
This burger
failed to
is fucking
show
great.
is that not only had this rocket crashed, but it had crashed directly in the center of what is believed to be Meilin Village, an area that was said to be home to well over 1,000 civilians. Seeing the massive explosion and knowing it happened right in the middle of a populated village leaves one to imagine how only 6 people had lost their lives, and things only get more suspicious as the video shows the destruction up close the following day. It's hard to put into words the level of ruin that this village was in following the crash. Buildings everywhere were not just damaged, but decimated, reduced to nothing but rubble. And it wasn't in a centralized location either, as the damage was spread out everywhere, making it unlikely
Brother?
happened right in the middle of a populated village leaves one to imagine how only 6 people had lost their lives. And things only get more suspicious as the video shows the destruction up close the following day.
Bro, that's a nuke.
It's hard to put into words the level of ruin that this village was in following the crash. Buildings everywhere were not just damaged, but decimated, reduced to nothing but rubble. And it wasn't in a centralized location either, as the damage was spread out everywhere, making it unlikely that many would survive the ordeal had they been in the immediate area. Which begs that question, how had more people not died? This question has prompted many to wonder whether or not China had covered up the official number of casualties in an attempt to not lose all credibility in their space program. A theory that is further brought into question by the fact that reporters were quickly taken away from the site, only to see dozens of ambulances, as well as flatbed trucks that some claimed were used to load the dead. Trucks that had gotten to the scene well before the Americans recording the ordeal were able to, which would have provided them ample time to remove any bodies from the area. However, despite the video emerging, and all the questions put forth, the official death toll has never been changed by Chinese officials. Yet in the United States, experts have given their own estimates of the sheer magnitude of the catastrophe, as it's widely believed that anywhere from 200 to 500 people had perished as a result of the faulty satellite launch, with some experts even suggesting that the number is even higher. And just watching this infamous video, it's not hard to understand why, but unfortunately it's likely we'll never know how many people died that day, as Chinese officials have held firm on their death toll, claiming the area had actually been evacuated before impact, though this claim is heavily disputed to this day. And it's made even more difficult to find answers, as the village itself that's shown within this video technically doesn't even exist. According to a handful of first-hand accounts, after the incident, this entire village had simply vanished, with there being, quote, virtually no trace of it having ever existed. In the end, we're left with countless unanswered questions, and this one chilling YouTube video of what may very well be the most devastating space-related disaster of all time, as it's likely we'll never see anything of this magnitude again. Or so I thought.
That's so cooked though for the families, the people, like. Huh? Again.
The following were all videos that have surfaced here on YouTube from China, showcasing other rocket launch failures that, again, have decimated more towns. And these disasters have taken place very recently, with most having gone unreported on by Chinese officials.
Bro.
And had it not been for these
What are they doing? Why are they sending rockets over fucking populated areas? What the fuck?
YouTube videos, we would likely have no idea that these disasters had even happened. It's very clear that China has been covering up many of these devastating failures, with it all likely having started back with Intelsat 708. So though for now this may likely be the most devastating space launch failure ever, it may not hold this title forever.
Dude, who cares if it's dense? Then either evacuate or... I remember saying
Our
that.
next video takes us to Bosnia, which is home to some of the most famous and highest bridge diving competitions in the world. And though these events may seem reckless and risky, in actuality they are a commonplace, with TV networks even airing the competitions live, with little fear of capturing tragedy on live TV. And on August 7th, 2016, one of these televised events would go live, as divers jumped from a 65-foot bridge in the river Drina. One of the top competitors entering the day was Andre Bew, a gold medalist diver with thousands of dives under his belt. And though the water was said to be a little chilly that day, conditions were otherwise perfect for the event,
60 is
as
a
Andre
lot.
prepared to show off his skill to the crowd. And from the moment he leapt off that platform, he appeared to be in top form, hitting the water with his usual grace. Yet another stellar dive by the champion. Only this time, things would quickly go wrong.
Well, you looked a little bit forward at the end, no? Looks like maybe his spine kind of... Oh no! Well, he snapped one of his vertebrae or something like that.
Andre can be seen on camera for a moment resurfacing from his dive, but almost immediately things go awry as his head submerges back under the water, disappearing into the murky depths. Soon after, we can see one of his arms briefly break the surface before going under again, this time disappearing completely. Luckily, there was a rescue crew waiting on standby for a moment just like this, as they drove their boats over to the struggling swimmer. But despite the large number of emergency staff, they all seemed hesitant to jump in the water.
What?
And it takes Andre's head resurfacing once again for the first lifeguard to enter the water. However, at this point, he was already gone. Andre, the championship diver, a man who has done countless other dives just like this, had vanished and vanished.
I'm sorry, get chat. I'm not a lifeguard, obviously. I mean, I don't know anything about training, but if some guy is like even looking at the slightest hint of struggle, why aren't they just rushing to it and just? Usually they go really fast towards people that are like even the hint of struggling. I don't get it.
To the point where emergency crews would eventually be called off.
I mean, they did. They're trolling
His
him.
lifeless body would be found days later down the river on August 11th, having suffered from multiple fractures as well as typical decay. The video would soon be posted to YouTube and picked up steam on local and worldwide news outlets, with many wondering what could have happened to make this otherwise masterful diver lose his life on such a routine day, especially given that there seemed to be nothing in his near-perfect dive that would indicate a risk of injury upon hitting the water. And even if it hadn't been perfect, the large number of emergency staff should have been enough to prevent a tragedy like this.
Chat, he looked a little bit
Despite
forward.
them being on scene within seconds, not only was he not rescued, but his body would go missing for days. Despite the video being viewed over 1 million times, there still seems to be no concrete and accepted cause of death, which has caused several theories to pop up as to what may have actually happened that day. Some theorize that the cold temperature of the water had sent his body into shock, a note that is given some validity, as the emergency crew on hand would later give an excuse for not entering the water in a timely manner, by saying that the water was, quote, too cold. A jarring claim given that they were paid professionals, hired specifically to rescue helpless swimmers, yet they were deterred by cold water. But this shock theory doesn't fully add up, as multiple divers had already participated up until this point, and none had faced any issues whatsoever. And if the water was truly that cold, one would imagine that they would have just canceled the event altogether, as again these were legitimate, professionally run events. Now perhaps the darkest theory put forth is that Andre was dragged below the surface by something in the water. This may sound ridiculous at first, but the River Drina is known to be inhabited by
Why, didn't they just say he had fractures?
a species of fish called the Wells catfish. And these catfish are remarkably large, as they can reach sizes of over 9 feet long, with the heaviest ever being caught weighing in at a staggering 330 pounds. And they are said to be extremely hostile, especially during mating season when males are guarding their nests. And coincidentally, the competition had taken place right at the end of their typical mating season.
Wait, what if you add both theories together? The fish and the broken spine / fracture. What if he hit a fish? What if he landed on a fish by accident and he broke his ship because as he's going into the water, the fish is, and then boom, hits the fish, dude.
Season. So it's entirely possible that when Andre jumped in the water, he landed in the vicinity of one of these protective fish, who would have then instinctively attacked, dragging him under the water and leaving him unable to swim back to the surface. This would explain why he seems to almost be sucked under the water, even looking behind him as if he noticed it coming towards him, as well as why the emergency response team was so hesitant to jump in after him. Plus, it would account for how his body had disappeared so quickly, and how they were unable to locate it until days after, with multiple fractures. And given the lack of protruding teeth that these fish have, the injuries that it would have left behind would be more akin to bruising and fractures, which were injuries that were supposedly prevalent on his body. And these facts are far from the only evidence to point to this cause of death, with the most damning coming from the video itself. When watching the clip, right as we see Andre's arm surface,
Broken vertebrae and shit and whatnot, and then they say that it's from a fish. Is there any fucking wounds or bleeding? I don't.
For the final time, we can see what appears to be a fin breaking the surface just feet away from him. Many have speculated that this could be the tail fin of a giant Wells catfish, as it appears to be completely synchronized with Andre going under the water for the final time.
Okay, so the fish bit him, went over there, did a spin, fuck off.
This is just a legitimate theory. But along with this, another major theory has been put forth, and that is the idea that Andre had suffered a broken vertebrae upon entering the water. The news site Telegraph actually reported this as the official autopsy's cause of death, but the validity of this claim is shaky, as it offers no citations, as well as being the only news site to report this information, despite universal coverage of the case. But we do know that his body did have multiple fractures when it was found, though the location of it has yet to be confirmed. And with that being said, a broken vertebrae is a risk for any diver, and it would have limited him from being able to keep his head above water, even as an experienced professional. But as mentioned previously, nothing seemed off in his diving form, and had he actually suffered from vertebrae fractures once hitting the water, he likely would have lost all feelings in his limbs, rendering him unable to move. Yet he was able to hold his head above water and move his arm.
That's not even true, I don't think. If you get fractures, you don't. It's not a GG. You can have fractures and still. What the fuck? Bro, if you get fractures, it doesn't cut the spine, dude.
Arms during the ordeal. So either they
people have fractures in their spine and shit like that, and in their vertebrae without getting paralyzed, bruh.
Fractured a specific way that was potentially made worse when he started to move, causing him to go limp, or this theory is a dead end.
Chat is fucking stupid. I can't. There's no shot yet. No.
Subsequent video footage remains a chilling mystery. Andre's family has since sued the response team for negligence. And while there's no way to be sure, it's more than likely that a faster response time would have at the very least recovered his body in a timely manner and given the family and the world of diving answers and some much needed.
I didn't say in medical school. You're just wrong. Like, I know some basic shit. You're just wrong. I used to do trampoline and gymnastics, and I've heard about people that have fucking fractured a bunch of vertebrae in it, like the see this, see that, and they don't get paralyzed sometimes. Dude, it has to fucking snap entirely and snap the cord for it to fucking sever entirely and for them to be fucking paralyzed. Bust a bitch ass. I'm telling you, my theory, dude, this guy hit a fish on his way down. The most unlucky events of all time. He hit his head on a fish as he hit the water and it snapped his shit, right? And as he's trying, he's probably getting a bunch of nerve fucking bullshit as and he can't breathe and then GG's.
Closure. But whereas Andre and his family likely would have never guessed his life would end that day, our final video showcases a subject that may be alluding to her own impending fate.
This is Oh In Hai, a 36-year-old Korean actress turned beauty YouTuber, a beloved and at times controversial celebrity from South Korea. And the video you're watching now follows the typical mold of many others across her channel, as she frequently shared beauty tips in the form of vlogs. However, this video came with a twist, due to the fact that it would prove to be the last she'd ever post, as just 2 days upon going live, she would be dead, leaving behind a grieving family, thousands of heartbroken fans, and what some would claim to be a cryptic set of clues. It was the night of September 13th, 2020, when a friend of Oh In Hai checked in on the actress, only to find her unconscious in her home. Medical personnel were called, but by the time they reached the hospital, she had no pulse. And despite having been revived for a short period of time, she would sadly pass away on the morning of September 14th. The investigation that followed was a quick one, and equally as vague, with officials hastily stating that the actress had taken her own life, something that would be confirmed via autopsy the following day, with her official cause of death being cardiac arrest from a suicide attempt. Although details from this autopsy would never be released, and no further context was provided, leading to the story being forgotten, as many have accepted In Hai's death as an open and shut case. However, despite the autopsy being released, online speculation had only just begun, as internet sleuths began to notice a number of oddities, especially in regards to her social media use in the days leading to her death. And it all seemed to begin with that final video titled In Hai's Nightly Routine Skincare. The video itself was labeled as Volume 48, something she did chronologically with every video she uploaded. But strangely, In Hai had made an error with this final video, as her previous upload was 45, so naturally this video would have been volume 46 instead of 48. A rather minor detail to nitpick, but it gets even stranger from here. As the video plays, things take a sudden turn as a jarring glitch unfolds on the screen.
Alright, man. Join Adin. Hey, man, I have an idea. How about you join the train on the people who are gonna suck my cock? Shut the fuck up, Buster! Jesus, dude! Holy fuck, dude!
48
Yo, join on
and ends
this!
at the 1 minute and 46 second mark.
적으로 해보려고 카메라를 켰습니다. 아 시원해.
I'm
아직
eating
머리도
food,
안
bro.
나왔는데 진짜 리얼로 보여주려고 정말 평소에 쓰는 나이트 케어가 어떻게 되는지 순서도 지금 즉흥적으로 제일 첫 번째는 토너를 화장솜에 묻혀서 닦아내야겠죠?
The video of In Hai randomly begins to buffer for nearly an entire
It's
minute
Morse
in a
code!
bizarre and disturbing manner, as it gives the illusion of In Hai chopping at her neck over and over and over again. And even more strangely, despite the audio track being consistent throughout this strange glitch, around the 92-second mark, you can hear what appears to be another voice come in.
아시죠?
It seems unnaturally high-pitched, and clearly was not part of the original audio track. According to multiple reports online, this unexplained voice supposedly says something that roughly translates to, "I'm going to die," though some have countered this claim, stating that this translation was a reach. Around the 103rd second mark, another unnatural voice can also be heard, though to my knowledge, a direct translation hasn't been found.
어느 정도 흡수를 시켜준 다음에
And immediately following the strange soundbite, the video begins to play normally, as if nothing happened. It's an error that lasts no more than a minute, yet the clock in the background of the video skips forward 3 to 4 minutes, potentially casting doubt on the idea that this could be an error within the video file itself.
Yeah, exactly.
All in all, this entire section of the video is off-putting, and Inhai herself even addresses this by adding, "Please skip over the buffering part," in parentheses at the end of her title. Despite the clarification, it's hard to ignore the movements she makes during this. I mean, she's repeatedly chopping at her neck for a whole minute, and couple this with the supposed disembodied voice seemingly saying, "I'm going to die." Something about this video just wasn't
Chat. Is there not a possible explanation, chat, of people that work into video and audio of why this could glitch? I think every time there's something big like this happens on the internet, that people have like explanations of why something is the way it is or whatever. Isn't that like that?
Adding up, as after all, looking through her channel, every one of her other videos are cleanly edited and filmed in a professional manner, and going through her catalog reveals no major editing flaws. Yet this minute-long error in the beginning of a video made the final cut. Something seems very off here,
You're not
especially
wrong.
given the fact that just 48 hours later, Owen Hai would be dead. And though this may just be a coincidental glitch, I struggle to believe that an error like that could cause these strange voices, especially when those voices are pitched differently and that one might be saying, "I'm going to die." But if it wasn't a buffering error, then that means it would have been done intentionally, which is incredibly important to note given that Owen Hai was her own video editor for this particular video. She had sole control over its production, meaning she would have been the one to orchestrate this, which leaves the big question, why? Well, many have pointed to the idea that Owen Hai was alluding to her own death within this video, as just 48 hours later she would be found without a pulse. A time that is noteworthy, considering she had mistakenly numbered her video as 48, despite it really being the 46th upload, along with the glitch itself beginning at the 48-second mark. And to add even more to the coincidence of this number, in her video prior to her last, she added these subtitles which feature the numbers 4 and 8 shown over and over again, which in the context of the video did actually translate to a relevant joke. However, it's strange regardless. That would make one question whether she used the number 48 to symbolize her impending death, especially given the movement of her comb and the morbid voiceover. And the theories don't stop from there, as there were even those who thought that this wasn't a clue to her impending suicide, but rather it was a hint at her impending murder. This theory stems from her last Instagram post, uploaded on the night of her death, that simply featured a photo of a flower, but the caption is what interests most, as it translated to, "I guess everyone is seeing this, even the person who said I'm just a body," implying a piece of meat, and saying it's not the wording that he can even use till the end. "I think I have to expose you because of that one phrase. I didn't want to believe anything else that came out of that mouth." Tagged in the post was a prominent lawyer and frequent social media user named Hu Wang, a man who, even to this day, we're unsure of what his relationship was to Owen Hai. Much like the video she had posted in the days prior, this caption was extremely out of the ordinary for Owen Hai, as typically her posts were positive and cheerful. And after an hour of confused fans questioning her, Owen Hai would delete the post altogether. Around this time, Wang would also delete all of his social media, having gone completely silent since. Quickly, it was speculated that Inhai was going to expose Wang for some type of misconduct, and in fear of losing his career, he went after her. This theory was backed up by testimony from Inhai's own family, who upon seeing Inhai in the hospital, noticed bruises all over her body, although this was likely a result of the hours of CPR that had been performed on her. Regardless of what the connection was, it is a bit odd that just one day after threatening to expose this popular lawyer, she was found unresponsive in her own home, and is again made more convincing given her final video, making it seem like she knew what would happen to her if she came forward against him. However, in actuality, Wang was never even considered a suspect by police, and it has never even been proven that the
Chat, I think this only kind of makes sense if the person was there with her and like holding her like hostage or something like that, right? So otherwise, why pose anything cryptic when might as well just go all out?
Two knew each other, making it unlikely that he had any involvement in her death. And in actuality, it seems more likely that this final Instagram post, and even this final video, really just hinted at Inhai's declining mental health. Which brings us back to the idea that this video was made as a hint that she would take her own life. According to her own friends, Inhai had spent years in a deep depression that stemmed all the way back in 2011. That year, she became enthralled in controversy when she wore a revealing dress at a Korean award show. And though this may seem like a minor detail, this would actually lead to her eventual blacklisting from the Korean film industry.
Yeah.
As she would receive less and less roles until 2014, when she would cease appearing in films completely, becoming a universally hated person.
Now people know this, and you guys, some people in chat is a question mark, okay? But this is because we live in the West, and for us, these things don't really make sense, right? But in Korean culture and whatnot, everything's completely different. Some of these things, like, how do I know? Because I used to play Overwatch, and a lot of Koreans in there, and they have Korean girlfriends and whatnot, and then the things that the girls post and whatnot, like the Reddits, their Reddit or whatever, would go insanely hard on girls that are like revealing and shit like that. It's different. It's just super different. That's all.
In the country she lived in, so it's understandable why she would have been in a very dark place mentally. And given the taboo nature of mental health in South Korea, she likely did not have resources for proper therapy or medication to help deal with these feelings. Something that could have escalated to her acting erratically, and maybe even sending out a cryptic call for help, with Wang potentially having said or did something that would prove to be the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. Or at the end of the day, it could all just be a huge coincidence, as, after all, practically all the articles we could find on this case are far from reputable, and many of the strange details could, at the end of the day, be chalked up to as confirmation bias. Plus, we've seen many online claims that it's very likely the mysterious voices being heard were really just her voice sped up for a comedic effect, to make some sort of sarcastic joke. A note that is easy to miss as a non-native speaker. Whatever the true meaning of this video is, it serves as a dark spot in the world of YouTube, with it having been mysteriously removed once speculation began to arise for reasons that remain unknown, making it a cryptic yet fitting end to one of YouTube's darkest videos.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, it kind of sucks because if the case was open and shut, right, then and they didn't follow leads on like possible foul play or whatever, then all the evidence gets all fucked with, right? Like the room gets tampered with or whatever, like the furniture gets fucked on and shit like that, and it can't really like double check and look for other shit. So it's kind of GG. Now what?